In 2014, a DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration agent, had what he thought was a brilliant idea. He had arrested a woman in upstate New York, and when he seized her phone during a drug bust, he found something he thought he could use. Photos, personal photos, photos of her with her young children, and this agent decided he was going to take those photos and build a fake Facebook profile in her name to help him investigate a larger drug ring. Then, when a friend reached out to ask the woman about the pictures she had supposedly posted, pictures she had never put up on Facebook, she realized immediately something was very wrong. End result, she sued the federal government, and the United States settled that lawsuit for $134,000, albeit they did not admit to guilt or any wrongdoing in the settlement. Facebook's chief security officer also sent a letter to the DEA calling it, and I'm quoting directly here, a knowing and serious breach of Facebook's terms and policies. Now, that was a federal agent, a person with a badge, and the full resources of the United States government behind him. So I want you to think hard about what that situation would look like for a licensed private investigator.
This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today.
Now, I want to quickly state that I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV or YouTube for that matter, and nothing in this video or any of my videos should ever be considered as legal advice. Today, I want to talk about social media OSINT, or open source intelligence investigations, and specifically what we, private investigators, can and cannot legally do. OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, and social media is one of the richest sources of open source intelligence available to us right now. But it can absolutely destroy your career if you use it the wrong way. Now, I want to be very clear about something right from the start. The problem in social media investigations is not about whether you use social media. The problem stems from when you use deception for those investigations. When you use your real account, your real name, your real identity, using it to look at publicly available information, well, that is fundamentally no different than standing on a public sidewalk and observing what is in plain view. Everything visible to the public is fair game. But the moment you create a false identity to access information a subject would never willingly share with a stranger, that is where the real problem begins. Let me explain what the law actually says about this, because there is a federal law that every PI doing any kind of digital investigations needs to understand. It is called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, or the CFAA. This law was designated to prevent unauthorized access to computers and computer systems, and for years there was a huge legal debate about whether using social media deceptively violated it. In 2021, the United States Supreme Court gave us important guidance in a case called Van Buren versus the United States. A police officer had used his authorized department database login to look up a license plate for personal reasons, not for any legitimate law enforcement purposes, for personal reasons. But the Supreme Court ruled he did not violate the CFAA because the law's phrase, exceeds authorized access, only applies when someone accesses areas they have absolutely no authorization to enter in the first place. So basically, he was authorized to be in that system. He just used it in the wrong way. So what does that ruling mean for us as investigators? Well, essentially, it means that using your own real social media account to conduct an investigation does not by itself make you a criminal under federal law. Back in 2022, after years in the federal courts, a case called HiQ Labs versus LinkedIn confirmed that accessing publicly available data on a platform does not violate the CFAA either. The court found that publicly visible data anybody can see without logging into that particular account or jumping any barriers, is fair game. But here is what those rulings do not protect you from, and this is the part you really need to pay attention to. Every major social media platform out there prohibits fake accounts in their terms of service. Not as a suggestion, rather it is a condition of your use of their platform. And I want you to actually look at what each one of them says, because these are the words that are going to come up if your investigation ever gets challenged in court. Facebook's terms of service state verbatim, provide for your account the same name that you use in everyday life. Provide accurate information about yourself. Create only one account, your own, and use it for personal purposes. Instagram is direct about it in their terms of service too. You can't impersonate others or provide inaccurate information, and you can't attempt to create accounts or access or collect information in unauthorized ways. LinkedIn as well puts it plainly in their user agreement. You cannot create a false identity on LinkedIn. Misrepresent your identity. Create a member profile for anyone other than yourself, a real person, or use or attempt to use another's account. Creating an account with false information is a violation of our terms. And then there is X, the social media, formerly known as Twitter, states in their authentication policy, you may not impersonate individuals, groups, or organizations to deceive others. Your account should not use false profile information to impersonate others. And even TikTok's terms of service state you may not impersonate any person or entity or falsely state or otherwise misrepresent yourself or your affiliation with any person or entity. Now, on its own, a terms of service violation is a civil matter, a breach of contract, if you will, between you and the platform, and not necessarily against the law. The platform could ban your account, and in some circumstances, they might pursue civil action against you. But when you use that fake identity to actually access private content a subject has deliberately kept hidden from the public, you are potentially moving into CFAA territory because you are now accessing information in a way that was never authorized. And depending on your state, you could also be looking at fraud or criminal impersonation charges on top of that. Then there is the practical reality that should matter most to any professional private investigator. Evidence gathered through a fake profile is going to get challenged in court. Opposing counsel is going to argue that you obtained it through deception, and judges are not particularly sympathetic to that argument. I have spoken with attorneys who will flat out refuse to work with evidence that was obtained deceptively because it puts their case and their reputation at serious risk. You could do months of solid investigative work and have it all thrown out because of how you collected the evidence. And then there is your PI license to consider. Most state PI licenses have ethics rules that specifically prohibit misrepresentation and deception in the course of an investigation. Using a fake profile is a textbook violation of those rules. Your license is on the table every time you do it. And let me tell you, folks, word travels fast in the PI industry. So let me tell you what you can do legally, because the truth is you can find quite a lot on social media legally. And I think a lot of investigators underestimate just how much is sitting right there in public view. Location data is one of the most valuable things that I pull from social media. Check-ins, tagged locations, event attendance. Those are the obvious ones. But what catches most investigators off guard is the location intelligence buried in photos. I'm not talking about the metadata that has been stripped out of the photo when they were uploaded. I have identified specific neighborhoods, businesses, and even vehicle parking locations just from what was visible behind a subject in a photo that they posted publicly. Posting patterns also tell you about schedules and routines in ways that can be useful if you're planning surveillance. If somebody is posting every morning around 7 and then goes dark until around 6 in the evening, well, there is a story to be told there. That intel tells me something very specific, like they may be working during those dark periods, as well about what time they may leave the house and about what time they get home. Relationships are often visible in the public feed if you know how to read them. Family members, close associates, new romantic connections, business relationships, the web of who is tagging someone, who is commenting, who they are interacting with publicly, all of that can map out a network for you even when the profile itself has limited visibility. Physical condition and abilities is where social media OSINT has been the most decisive in workers' compensation cases. I have had subjects with documented claims of debilitating injuries who were publicly checking in at the gym, posting hiking photos, and tagging themselves at recreational sports facilities and playing in sports leagues. Vehicle information shows up constantly too because people love posting about their cars, especially their new cars, their fancy cars, or even that old jalopy that they've been driving for 35 years. I have confirmed vehicle descriptions and pulled partial plate numbers from photos people have posted just because the pride factor was there when they were driving their vehicle or where they were driving to. Public social media activity that does not line up with someone's stated financial circumstances is out there, and it is legally accessible. Now, what do you do when a profile is private? What do you do then? I get asked this question all the time. The answer is simple. Do not build a fake identity to try to connect with a subject. Document everything you can that is publicly visible right now. And I mean right now, document it, because profiles go private and posts get deleted the moment someone suspects an investigation is underway. Screenshot it, archive it, timestamp it, because that evidence is solid and it is going to hold up. And if the private content is truly essential to building the case, work with the attorney to subpoena the records directly from the platform. That is the legal path. I know it takes longer. It requires tons of work, but it is the path that holds up in the courtroom. And in the end, it's not your time or money being spent, it's the client's. And you know what? The client is going to spend the money to get the job done correctly. The basic rule I have used for years is as simple as this. If I have to lie to get it, I don't get it. That single rule keeps me on the right side of the law, the right side of ethics and moral values, and the right side of the courtroom, and that is exactly where I intend to stay. Now, if you found this video helpful, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and click on that join button to learn how you can become a PI Guy channel member.